Thank you for watching this live emergency Sunday news bulletin. The gravity of this information is so great, I'm going to try to be as calm as I can. Matt Drudge, a true maverick and pioneer of independent media and modern American conservatism, has shown that his nose, his political acumen, his gravitas for understanding future political events is extremely uncannily accurate. He predicted my rise more than 12 years ago. And he's come out in a series of tweets that are listed on drudgereport.com, warning of midterm bloodbath, Trump to lose 60 seats in the House like Obama did. And then he points out that since the Civil War, every party that's just won the presidential election loses the House and or the Senate in the midterm. He then goes on to point out that many political scientists and major polls show that it's trending for Trump to lose the same amount of seats, 60, that Barack Obama lost when he was first elected 2 years into his administration. Now, here's the good news. This is a major political realignment, the first one since we've had since the Civil War. Most political historians agree. Trends are accelerated now as well. So we're seeing global populism exploding and political realignments on a planetary scale towards nationalist, towards populist, towards free market, away from crony capitalism, socialism, and communism. This trend cannot be ignored, and globalists in many of their top publications, like the Foreign Affairs of the CFR, admit that the Chinese century probably isn't going to happen now, the EU takeover is about to collapse, and that their authoritarian plan of technocracy, in their own words, is in trouble. But I want to talk about what they're going to do if they do win in a moment, which is truly frightening. But first, let's talk about Drudge's final statement on this, which again, he's pointing out that you control your own destiny. Matt Drudge wrote, Trump and Obama both have a 47% approval at this time of presidency, according to Rasmussen. Trump will also lose 60 seats in the House like Obama did during the first midterm, unless, and that unless part is the key, unless we realize that this isn't like past elections, and the Democrats have already told us what they're going to do if they win. They've already shown us their Trump derangement syndrome, which is really their anti-American derangement syndrome. We've already seen them try to sabotage the economy to bring us to heel. We've already seen them in their own documents try to cause racial and religious and sexual division between men and women in this nation. So let's talk about how we win this first. We point out what the Democrats have said they'll do if they win, what bullies they are, and the fact that they've promised to reverse the gains that we've seen for the average person if they are able to take control of the House and or Senate, and that they're promising to impeach Trump. And then they have said they're going to have new federally run elections that violate state and federal law, that they're going to federalize elections, and that the new Democrat Homeland Security will make sure that the Tea Party, the populist movement, and others can never get control of the Republican Party again. And they intend to basically make the Republican Party a regional Southern party and break the Democratic Party into a socialist communist wing and a more blue-collar fake right-wing ring and system to control political discourse. As Carol Quigley wrote in Tragedy and Hope, he had wanted the Republican and Democratic parties to be part of the same globalist political ring, but in public fight with each other to make it look like there were demonstrable differences, but in reality move the ball down the field for globalism and vertical integration of the economy and culture. Tyranny. Trump is a real disruptor, bringing back classic free market Americana. And that's why the political power structure on both sides is so incredibly scared, because they recognize Trump is only a manifestation of this larger global awakening. We need a true sense of urgency. 50 days out now from the most historic election in world history. We need every conservative, every Christian, every libertarian, every person that wants to have a good economy and a good future, who wants to see real reform and sovereignty and our border controlled. must be more aggressive, calling into talk radio, to C-SPAN, going to political events, going like Democrats do to Trump events, going to Democrat events, and bringing up real issues and the type of tyrannical activity they've been involved in. I'm going to play a clip now from Owen Schroyer last week, going down to a so-called Austin church where they were calling for totally open borders, no border at all, as Latin America collapses. Part of a larger admitted Soros UN plan to actually bring in world government by collapsing third world nations into Europe and into the United States, and then using those client groups as the political control arm to basically burn down cities, you name it, if the Western nations do not capitulate to the multinational corporations in control of the United Nations. Here is that clip from last week in Austin.
We're here for your country, so we need a more humane policy, and it's not just this baby jail. We don't want any baby jails, period.
Thank you. Let's take some questions, and I think we can all hear you if you just
is it Ms. Garcia, right? Is that
right?
Just spoke, Senator Garcia? Yeah, you just said that we should stop, the family detention and all the harm that's being done to these families. But don't you think actually doing something about the border would be the best option? You say you want to keep terrorists out. I have a stack of news. I brought a copy for everyone here today. There was video of armed men walking right across the border, dozens of them in military uniforms. So that doesn't help anyone. That doesn't help immigrants that want to come here legally. And I'm just curious, if we want to stop family detention and all this horror that you're talking about, why don't we actually secure the border? I think that would be the best option. And if you want to also stop baby prisons, maybe we should stop abortion centers too from killing them.
Okay, well, I think InfoWars is here. So, next question.
Well, that's fine. You guys can discount me. I will leave this stack of news for you. Video. Senator, are you going to do anything about a video of armed men? Excuse me, sir. I have a right to free speech. This is a senator. I'll leave this stack of news. You guys can look at the videos. I'm going to put it right here. Armed men in military uniforms. Armed men in military uniforms. And I'd like to get a comment from my senator, and you guys want me to go. Senator, will you please give me a comment?
Sir, if you'll just leave the information here, I'll be happy to look at it. I'm not seeing the video you're referring to. I'm not seeing your paperwork. I think I can
right here, ma'am.
The rest of the group.
Here, buddy. I'll take it from you. There you go. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, thank you. These are armed men, ladies and gentlemen, in military uniform, dozens of them. Well, I just think it's ridiculous that you blame the Trump administration for this. Thank God for that gentleman for telling the truth about family separation starting long before Trump. In fact, Trump is the only president to do anything about it. He signed an executive order to stop it. No other presidents do that. This is sad that you guys fall for this brainwashing. You should check up on it. We should do something about the border, not President Trump trying to save this country. Yeah, bye. You're welcome. You're welcome for informing you all. Oh, really? We lost our platform, sir. So this man is now celebrating free speech dead in America, and I got news. Our web traffic is up tenfold. You guys are losing. That's why your room is empty. I have more audience on my stream right now. You guys have a wonderful night. God bless you.
The entire world was being taken over by multinational corporations, financing the universities and leftist movements to get rid of free speech, to get rid of the right of assembly. All over the world, the left are now handmaidens of big corporations, bringing in real corporate fascism. It's clear to understand our borders will be dissolved. ICE will be dissolved. The UN will dictate via UNESCO the terms of our surrender. Before Trump got in, for 2 administrations, Bush and Obama, the UN dictated who could come into the U.S. and not via the refugee program. Trump removed us from that. So, open borders, UN control, just like the EU follows UN rules, just like they're saying that UK can't have Brexit because they're under UN control. This is really happening. So, UN global government rule, no sovereignty, giant third world populations brought in, weaponized to drive down wages and be a political detonator. Total restrictions on free speech of nationalists, of patriots, of small businesses, of real churches. a true end of free speech in this country, which they're now openly launching, a world corporate credit score, a social score, where if you don't behave yourself, you are basically blackballed from society and sent into exile. True authoritarianism, again, on every front. Global UN-run initiatives to control elections, and something Obama tried to do in his final months called strong cities, to end the federalist system between the states and the federal government and bring in a federally, internationally controlled system. Massively high taxes on the middle class, and the big mega corporations like Apple and Google continuing to be tax exempt, something Trump has been pushing to stop. Gun confiscation, the breakup of the family, true 21st century high-tech merger of corporate fascism and communism via a technocracy system. We are already deep into this system. Trump has not taken the country back yet. He's only gotten a foot in the door. And that's why they're attacking Trump, myself, Donald Trump Jr., and anyone else that tells the truth, because we have literally stuck our foot in the door. The globalists were slamming the door on free market, on free speech, on the family, on real higher education, on real futures. They were going to chart your destiny. We simply stuck our foot in the door. They're pulling it with all their force. My foot's bleeding. Trump's foot's bleeding. Those of you that have stood up for what's right, you've been bullied, you've been attacked, you've been persecuted. Your foot is bleeding. But understand, if we let them close that door, things are going to get a lot worse. And so, in the next 50 days especially, the most important thing you can do, like we did right before the election 2 years ago, is get on our knees and pray to God to open up people's hearts and minds, and then to take action, because God helps those who help themselves, and go out in a legal and lawful and polite but forceful way and have your voice heard at these leftist town halls, or at regular city council meetings, or the PTA, or local news. Do whatever you have to do when Democrat candidates are live on television, like I've done at the Senate office building, like I've done at state capitals, like many of you have done going out confronting Bill Clinton when he would dare say that Trump was a sexual abuser. We would point out that he was the man who settled rape cases. They're trying to shut us down on the internet because we're effective and because we're winners and because what we're saying makes sense and is popular and is good. And because we're talking about Martin Luther King and unity and bringing people together for what we stand for and what we produce and who we are, not what color we are. The universities are now starting black and Hispanic and white safe zones. They're creating segregation again. They're doing things that are antithetical to true liberalism, because liberalism is not the leftist movement. Liberalism can be promoted by conservatives or by what you'd call Democrats, which just means open free society. The leftist system is not that, ladies and gentlemen. It is pure tyranny. So I want to end this special live report with something I aired last week during a live report because it was so powerful. Prager University, which is highly censored as well because it's so truthful, the difference between liberalism and leftist, and then a special 25-minute interview I did with one of the main heroes. They say they're all heroes, but he was a real hero in Benghazi, who lost his friends when Obama and Hillary ordered the stand down. And then when he criticized Obama, Obama said Benghazi basically didn't happen and was a conspiracy theory. So that's coming up after the Prager U piece here in just a moment. But look, the globalist social engineers want you to be dependent on them. It's their own system. It's their own admission. They want to control your life. They want to conquer you. And now the economy is set to be growing at 4.8% in projections by the Fed, about to be announced, and already at 4.2%. Obama and others can't deny that the economy's turned around in the last 22 months. So what they're doing instead is now taking credit for it, which again is so incredibly sick. Obama said, you don't have a magic wand. You'll never get it above 3%. I couldn't, you can't. Now he says, oh, he knew all along it would go above 4%, and that he told us that, but it's not true. People like Bill Maher and Barack Obama are elitist. They know what they're doing. They're following an ancient divide and conquer strategy. The good news is, yes, the polls show Trump neck and neck, But Rasmussen and others, if you go back 8 years ago, were clearly giving Obama and the Democrats 15 points higher because they sampled Democrats 15% higher in their methodology. So we have that showing us that a real red wave is coming. We also have the fact that people are scared to say in polls that they support Trump. And that's the Trump effect, which adds another 10, 15 points to it. And then you add all the prosperity and the things that have happened, and major polls showing a doubling in African American and Hispanic support for Trump after they've seen the truth and learned about the lies. And I see a giant red wave getting more seats in the Senate and the House. But here's the problem. Tens of millions of individuals voting in the names of dead people who've died recently out of the voter rolls. They just check the obituaries. They index the numbers. Democrats are famous for it. They've been caught hundreds of times on video. As you know, Project Veritas. And because of the illegals voting and the corruption of the Democratic Party and Soros having control of half, that's mainstream news, the voting machines in the country, Snopes says, well, he only owns part of the company. Yeah, with some other Democrats, exactly. So we know that there's major election fraud, and we know that only a huge red wave, like happened 2 years ago, can defeat that. They've got their seawall of fraud. And so the wave's got to be way bigger. Let's say the seawall's 30 feet. It's got to be a 40-foot wave. And right now, I'd say it's about a 30-foot wave. That's why Drudge is right. Unless we really get upset and at least we stop being complacent, as some numbers show, and think that we're the red waves for sure. Unless we really get involved. The Democrats know there's a political realignment against globalism and collectivism and corporatism. They are going to come in with draconian authoritarianism. They even brag about it and say, the neocons say, the Weekly Standard, run by Crystal, who's just a horrible person, lied about WMDs, you name it. They say they're going to arrest people that supported Trump once they take control. They're threatening people in D.C. and others. So because of the bullying, because of their criminal activity, because of the way they've acted, because of the things they've done, it's all the more reason to just walk away from the censorship, from the bullying, from the lies, from the intimidation, and from their promises that to stop Americana free market waves in the future, they're going to get rid of our political system and any chance we have to reform it to bring in a totally staged situation like Venezuela. And that's what they've said. So they know you've rejected them. And in a desperate attempt, they're bringing in real authoritarianism. And it may work because Americans have never lived under tyranny like this, under real tyranny. And so just like wildlife populations, like deer that have never been hunted, or the dodo bird that never been hunted by man, they were killed very, very quickly because they had no life force. They had no instinct. They had no experience. They didn't know what to do. And it's the same thing. What you're seeing is true draconian evil. Mega corporations working in concert to ban me across 90 plus platforms. I've got new announcements today, 4 to 6 p.m. on the latest thing they banned. This is a world exclusive. So we'll be telling you about that today, 4 o'clock Central, 4 to 6 p.m. on the main transmission that goes out on radio and TV at Infowars.com/show. But now the New York Times on record Trump economy changed how it's measured. And we've got Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr. Obama. He goes on to say, abracadabra, my dad fixed economy, you could not. But again, they'll just try to censor his statements and shadow ban him so you can't hear the truth. Trump has a lot of courage. You have a lot of courage. But I think you have self-preservation instincts and realize that we've got to stand up against this. So again, this is the PragerU piece. You may have already seen it. Share this video. That's how we get around the censors. Oh, and I'm glad I thought of that. Vote. Get your friends and family to vote. Go out and get others to vote. Go to any public event where you can and be heard. This is an emergency for you and your family. They're trying to steal your birthright. And understand, 90% of the web is Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, these big conglomerates. But already there's an exodus back to websites. So, real.video, Infowars.com. Get the articles, get the videos, email them to friends and family, put it on the back of business cards, tell folks at work, get up in front of the church, talk about censorship in America, and say, why is this show verboten? Why do they want it shut down? So have a huge grassroots wave of internet activity. And that means going out in the real world at events that are on the internet. Sporting events are unfurling Infowars.com banners, unfurling Trump, fix the economy banners, unfurling America's back, Trump, showing the real solidarity of the people and the real popularity of freedom. This is a briefing on what's going to happen unless you take action. And I'm not bitching at you, I'm thanking you. But now is the time to really redouble our efforts. Okay, PragerU coming up. Difference between a liberal and difference between a leftist. And then one of the main heroes of Benghazi, most powerful interview I've ever done with Tonto, probably done 10 over the years, including in studio. Okay, folks, whatever you do, take this live link from Infowars.com and Newswars.com to this page and spread it via text message, via email, via Facebook, Twitter. And don't be afraid of getting restricted or banned. There's congressional hearings coming. I knew I'd get banned telling the truth. I had to do it to draw attention to what's happening in what they call pawn sacrifice. So I made the decision. I said I made the decision. I'm a winner, not a loser. Because being a human means I can think 3, 4, 5th dimensionally. And I can make sacrifices myself consciously for my family. And that's what this is. And when you do that, you're rewarded by God, you're rewarded by your life, and you're rewarded by a better world you live in. So here's this final important piece. The rest is up to you.
What's the difference between a liberal and a leftist? This question stumps most people because they think liberal and left are essentially the same. But they're not. In fact, liberalism and leftism have almost nothing in common. But the left has appropriated the word liberal so effectively, almost everyone, liberals, leftists, and conservatives, thinks they are synonymous. But they're not. Let me offer you 6 examples. 1. Race. This is probably the most obvious difference between liberal and left. The liberal position on race has always been A, the color of a person's skin is insignificant, and B, those who believe race is significant are racists. Meanwhile, the left believes the very opposite. To the left, it's the liberal attitude toward race. It's unimportant. That is racist. That's why the University of California officially lists the statement, "There is only one race, the human race," as racist. And liberals have always been passionately committed to racial integration, while the left is increasingly committed to racial segregation, such as all-black dormitories and separate black graduations at universities. 2. Capitalism. Liberals have always been pro-capitalism because liberals are committed to free enterprise and because they know capitalism is the only way to lift great numbers of people out of poverty. It is true that liberals want government to play a bigger role in the economy than conservatives do. But liberals never opposed capitalism, and they were never for socialism. Opposition to capitalism and advocacy of socialism are left-wing values. 3. Nationalism. Liberals believe in the nation-state, whether that nation is the United States, Brazil, or France. But because the left divides the world by class rather than by national identity, the left has always opposed nationalism. So, while liberals have always wanted to protect American sovereignty and borders, the left is for open borders. When the writers of Superman were liberals, Superman was a proud American whose very motto was truth, justice, and the American way. But that all changed a few years ago when left-wing writers took over the comic strip and had Superman renounce his American citizenship to be a citizen of the world. The left has contempt for nationalism, seeing it as the road to fascism. Better that we should all be citizens of the world in a world without borders. 4. View of America. Liberals have always venerated America. Watch American films from the 1930s through the 1950s, and you will be watching overtly patriotic, America-celebrating films, virtually all produced, directed, and acted by liberals. Liberals were quite aware of America's imperfections, but they agreed with Abraham Lincoln that America is the last best hope of Earth. The left, however, believes the left is the last best hope of Earth and regards America as racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, violent, and imperialistic. 5. Free speech. No one has been more committed than American liberals to the famous statement, "I wholly disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it." But the left is leading the first widespread suppression of free speech in modern American history, from the universities to the tech companies that govern the internet to almost every other institution and place of work. Of course, the left claims to only oppose hate speech, but putting aside the fact that the left deems hate speech anything it differs with, protecting what you or I might consider hate speech is the entire point of free speech. 6. Western civilization. Liberals have always championed and sought to protect Western civilization. Liberals celebrate the West's unique moral, philosophical, artistic, musical, and literary achievements, and have taught them at virtually every university. The most revered liberal in American political history, President Franklin Roosevelt, often cited the need to protect Western civilization and even Christian civilization. Yet when President Donald Trump spoke of the need to protect Western civilization in a speech in Warsaw, the left-wing media, also known as the mainstream media, denounced him. They argue that Western civilization is no better than any other, and that Western civilization is just a euphemism for white supremacy. So then, if liberalism and leftism are so different, why don't liberals oppose the left? In a nutshell, because they have been taught all their lives to fear the right. But as one of the best-known liberals in America, Harvard Law School professor Alan Dershowitz said, "As a liberal, as an American, and as a Jew, I far more fear the left than the right." Dear liberals, conservatives are not your enemy. The left is. I'm Dennis Prager.
Look at that. Everybody else is just like yellow or clear. That's because it's been denatured, it's been watered down. We didn't do that. You think I would metaphysically sell you something that this is the very best I can get? I'd rather go to hell than do that. I will only give you the maximum best info, the maximum truth, the maximum product, because I want that goodwill. What I do to you, I do to myself. Don't you get the big secret? You ever seen fish oil look like that? No, you never seen that, have you? And this little jewel right here is solid, liquid consciousness. Look it up. Find out how even the FDA and the government admits fish oil is incredible. The number one thing anybody can do for themselves is take good fish oil or krill oil. Just like our information is dynamite, so are our products, InfoWarsStore.com.